High above Central Europe, where the clouds wrap around jagged white peaks, lies a country that learned to survive by standing still. Switzerland. Small, landlocked, surrounded by giants that have fought for centuries. Yet somehow, while the cannons of history thundered on every border, this tiny patch of mountains remained untouched. The secret begins right here, in the rock, the snow, and the narrow passes that slice through the Alps like veins in marble. The Swiss didn't inherit safety, they engineered it. Geography gave them cliffs, they turned them into walls. Valleys became choke points. Every bridge that crossed a river was built with explosives wired beneath its stones, not out of fear, but out of design. If an invader ever came, the Swiss plan was simple: destroy everything that leads inside. The strategy had a name: the National Redoubt, a network of hidden bunkers and tunnels carved into granite during the World Wars. Thousands of civilians trained to blow up their own roads at a moment's notice. Entire valleys could vanish behind rubble within minutes. It sounds extreme, and it was. But for the Swiss, extreme was normal. Imagine a farmer who spends the morning milking his cows, then spends the afternoon learning how to detonate a mountain pass. That was Switzerland in the 20th century. Peaceful, armed, and always ready. Even today, the country of 9 million hides an estimated 350,000 military bunkers, some now disguised as barns or chalets. To outsiders, it looked like paranoia. To the Swiss, it was insurance, a physical policy written in stone. Geography doesn't make a nation invincible, but it buys time. And time is often the most valuable weapon of all. Every empire that ever dreamed of crossing these peaks, from the Romans to Napoleon to Hitler, ran into the same problem. The mountains don't care who you are. Snow buries ambition. Avalanches silence armies. Logistics collapses faster than morale. For invaders, Switzerland was a nightmare. For the Swiss, it was home. By the time the 20th century arrived, Switzerland had turned its geography into a philosophy. We will not attack first, but we will never be conquered. And as the world prepared to fight the most devastating wars in human history, the Swiss fortress stood ready, silent, patient, watching. But mountains alone can't protect a nation forever. To truly survive, Switzerland would need a weapon far more powerful than terrain. It would need neutrality. By the 16th century, Switzerland had seen enough blood. Mercenaries from these mountains fought in nearly every European war. For France, for the Holy Roman Empire, for anyone who could pay. But when the Swiss Confederation nearly tore itself apart during the wars of religion, something changed. A new idea took root. If you cannot win every battle, refuse to fight them. In 1648, the Peace of Westphalia ended the 30 Years' War and formally recognized Swiss independence from the Holy Roman Empire. But it wasn't until 1815, at the Congress of Vienna, that the great powers of Europe made it official. Switzerland would remain permanently neutral. No foreign troops could cross its borders. No Swiss army would join foreign wars. It was an unprecedented experiment. A nation protected not by alliances, but by an idea. Neutrality was never a passive stance. It was a business model. While Europe battled for territory, the Swiss focused on trade. They built roads instead of empires, banks instead of battalions. Their neighbors called them cowards. History would call them clever. Out of neutrality grew precision. The Swiss perfected watchmaking because time was their only currency. They crafted instruments of measurement while others crafted weapons of war. And in doing so, they discovered something profitable: trust. When nations fight, they need somewhere safe to store what they can't protect: their gold, their documents, their secrets. Switzerland became that place, a neutral banker to a violent continent. By the late 1800s, neutrality had turned from philosophy to brand. Swiss chocolate stood for quality, Swiss banks for discretion, Swiss watches for perfection. The world was learning to associate one word with everything Swiss: reliability. But when the guns of World War I roared across Europe, neutrality would face its first real test. Could a nation remain innocent when the whole world was on fire? Switzerland was about to find out, and its answer would change the meaning of neutrality forever. When the guns of 1914 thundered across Europe, Switzerland once again became the eye of the storm. Surrounded on every side by warring empires, the Swiss army mobilized, not to fight, but to stand ready. Neutrality was tested, and so was trust. Because in wartime, trust is currency. Across the Alps, trains rumbled through tunnels carrying more than soldiers. They carried gold. Governments moved their fortunes out of the line of fire, and Swiss banks became their vaults. For every cannon fired, another deposit was made in Zurich. When the First World War ended, Europe was broke. But the Swiss franc, backed by reputation, stood stronger than ever. The world had learned a powerful lesson. If you want safety, you pay the Swiss for it. Then came the 1930s, and a law that would define a century: the Federal Banking Act of 1934. Its most famous line was short: revealing a client's identity was a criminal offense, prison for a leak, silence for a profit. It was marketed as protection for honest savers, but everyone knew who would come knocking. As Hitler rose in Germany and Europe braced for war again, gold and assets fled across the borders. Nazi officials, European royals, and even the Vatican discreetly transferred wealth into Swiss accounts. The banks didn't ask questions. They asked for signatures. When the Second World War erupted, Switzerland became the world's vault once more. Allied planes flew overhead. Axis trains rolled beneath the mountains. And deep inside granite walls, numbered accounts filled with fortunes that no flag could claim. To critics, it looked like collaboration. To bankers, it was survival. And to clients on both sides, it was convenience. A neutral country willing to hold everyone's secrets had just invented the most powerful financial product in history: privacy. By 1945, when cities across Europe lay in ruins, Swiss banks were bigger than ever. Zurich and Geneva emerged untouched, polished, and profitable. The nation that had fired no shots now held a third of the world's offshore wealth. Neutrality had paid off. But as peace returned, whispers began to grow louder. Who owned the gold hidden behind those vault doors? And could a country claim innocence while counting profits from a world at war? The answers would come, slowly and with a price. By the end of the Second World War, Europe was split between ruins and victory parades. But Switzerland stood in quiet contrast, unscathed, well-fed, its factories still humming. While others buried the dead, the Swiss balanced their ledgers. The world began to ask, how did this tiny neutral nation come out richer than before? The answer lies in what economists later called the hidden war profits. For 6 long years, Switzerland supplied precision tools, machine parts, and ammunition components to both sides. German engineers bought Swiss ball bearings. Allied hospitals bought Swiss medicine. The mountains didn't stop trade. They merely slowed inspection. Through mountain tunnels and secret rail lines, goods moved quietly beneath the war's chaos. Switzerland's economy doubled between 1939 and 1945. Not through conquest, but through commerce. The factories that once built watches shifted to build weapons sites. The forges that made luxury steel crafted parts for Messerschmitt engines. And every payment, no matter which flag it bore, passed through a Swiss account. The Allies tolerated it. They needed Swiss rail lines for diplomacy. The Axis tolerated it. They needed Swiss credit to move money out of occupied territories. Everyone needed Switzerland. No one dared invade it. Neutrality had become leverage, and the Swiss played the middle perfectly. In public, the government insisted neutrality was humanitarian. In private, the prophets told another story. Swiss GDP grew while its neighbors starved. The war ended with the Allies victorious, but the Swiss richer, holding billions in unclaimed gold, much of it later traced back to victims of the Holocaust. The revelations would take decades to surface. For now, in the late 1940s, Switzerland stood spotless, at least on paper. To the outside world, it was a beacon of peace. To those who looked closer, it was a mirror reflecting the moral price of neutrality. And yet, history rarely punishes discretion. As Europe rebuilt, diplomats and investors once again turned to the one country that hadn't burned. Soon, Swiss neutrality would evolve from survival strategy to global enterprise, this time with the whole world watching. Switzerland's vaults give way to boardrooms, and its soldiers trade rifles for briefcases. The Cold War is coming, and the world's spies are already checking in at Geneva. The year is 1945. The guns have gone silent, and the world begins to rebuild. Europe is split between East and West, communism and capitalism. And once again, in the middle of it all, sits Switzerland. Untouched, unbombed, and now uniquely positioned to play a new role. The Swiss shifted from banking gold to banking diplomacy. Geneva became the headquarters for the world's most important conversations. The newly formed United Nations opened offices here. The Red Cross, born in Geneva, became a symbol of Switzerland's humanitarian soul. And within a few years, more than 200 international organizations set up permanent offices on Swiss soil. But as the Cold War shifted into a digital one, even neutrality had to evolve again. Information became the new currency. And Switzerland, the master of secrets, was ready to protect those too. Every century rewrites the rules of power. The 1900s were ruled by oil and steel. The 2000s? By data. And while the rest of the world rushed to build walls of firewalls and satellites, the Swiss quietly built something older and smarter. A digital version of their ancient fortress. In the early 2000s, engineers beneath the Swiss Alps converted old Cold War bunkers into data centers. Iron doors, once meant to stop tanks, now protect servers. Cables run through tunnels where soldiers once trained. The bunkers that held gold now hold information. The new treasure of the 21st century. Switzerland saw what was coming. Wars would be fought with data breaches, not bullets. So they rebranded their neutrality for the digital age, promising privacy in a world that had forgotten what it meant. Soon, Switzerland was hosting blockchain foundations, crypto funds, and digital currency labs. The so-called Crypto Valley in Zug became the Silicon Valley of privacy. Here, companies didn't sell data, they defended it. And as governments around the world passed surveillance laws, investors moved their servers to the same mountains that once hid the nation's gold. Every story of power has a cost. For centuries, Switzerland's cost was moral rather than military. They built a reputation on neutrality and trust. But in the 21st century, the rest of the world began to demand receipts. After decades of secrecy, international investigators asked the question the Swiss least wanted to hear. What's really inside the vaults? In 2007, under global pressure, Switzerland started dismantling its banking secrecy laws. Tax havens were exposed. Hidden fortunes surfaced. Dictators, corporations, and billionaires lost their shadows. When wars rage, they host the talks. When currencies collapse, they guard the wealth. When data leaks, they build the walls that hold it in. Switzerland is small, but its influence seeps everywhere. Unseen, steady, deliberate. Some call it luck, others genius. So when you see that small square flag, the white cross on red, remember that behind its calm simplicity lies 500 years of strategy. A fortress built not of stone or steel, but of trust. Switzerland, the nation that mastered the art of staying out of the fight, and in doing so, became untouchable.